think the craziest project I've ever done was interiors for a private jet. It took me only a couple of days to develop the entire design.
You weren't a designer for interiors of planes before. I can only guess that this was probably the result of you really putting yourself out there on the social media.
Right, yes, you're very right. It came just from social media, it came exactly from Instagram.
It was coming up with quick and very exciting concept ideas in the feasibility study, concept design stage at the beginning, to really make the client excited and then start to kind of rationalize the design.
For the private jet, it was obviously you have to stick to the structure, and we know the sizes, but everything else inside and outside wasn't restricted by anything, so I could really go wild.
We started to see a new wave of designers who were not necessarily designers before, but they were really good at designing with AI. And what is the difference between someone who is a designer and use AI for design and someone who is not a designer?
AI and tools like Midjourney is open to public, so it means everyone can use it, and it's okay. It's really cool people do, because the fact that you are not trained as a designer doesn't mean that you don't have a talent for it.
You mentioned using keywords and parameters. I guess that's something that we were not really used to as designers before when we were designing using pen and paper. We are now introduced to a new way of designing, which is all about verbal communication. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of AI Hub Podcast. Today I'm so excited to talk to one of the people who have been watching her work for a couple of months, and I'm really excited to dive into her journey of how she has found AI and kind of how she's been using AI in her work. She's an amazing designer, and I'm not gonna introduce her. I'm gonna let her introduce herself because I think she's gonna do a better job than me. But I'm very excited to talk to Ola, if I can pronounce your name correctly.
Yes, that's fine.
And yeah, how are you?
I'm really good, very excited to be here and be able to share my story, hopefully inspire other people who are also designers, architects, or just passionate and interested in AI.
Thank you so much. Thank you for giving us your time. So where are you based?
Right. So I'm Polish and I'm based in London. I work and actually I'm here working on a daily basis. So even though I come from other countries, I also studied in the UK. I studied architecture and city planning, and then I continued my journey studying another 4 years just interior design. And currently my work is mostly residential and commercial interior design projects.
Oh, very exciting, because I didn't know you were based in London. I don't know if you know, I'm based in London as well. So probably
Right.
we should meet for a coffee or something. But where did you study?
So I studied architecture back in Poland many years ago. I finished in 2008, and I studied also at KLC. It's University of Brighton interior design, which actually has a department in Chelsea Harbour in London.
Oh, amazing. And then what kind of elements made you to shift from architecture to interiors?
Right. I think I always liked interiors a lot. So the most interesting part for me as an architect, I was always designing houses. I grew as a house designer. So houses are usually exteriors, right? Beautiful elevations, maybe interesting forms. But then I was always interested what is actually happening inside and how people can use the space, how can they navigate the space. And even though to design a house is kind of straightforward because we have just, to be honest, really one structure, right? You need to have a kitchen, a living room, bedrooms, but it's not so straightforward when you think about it. When you think about the psychology of how the lifestyle has changed, People have now different needs, especially now after the pandemic times when life became more hybrid. People work from home, kids tend to spend more time at home. Everything has shifted. So I was always interested in, the psychology behind like how people actually use the space and how can they benefit from having different kind of rooms, different kind of spaces. How should they be connected, or should they actually be separate? So I think the psychology and the fact that I really like beautiful things and interiors are beautiful made me to pursue my career further, go back to university, and yeah, discover new things. And I'm really happy I did that because the technology and everything has changed so much. So since the time I finished my university in 2008, we have new software, new 3D modeling software, new rendering software. We have so many new tools as designers and architects today that you have to know how to use the things in your work in order to be competitive, to be attractive to your clients, and be able to deliver new things. Because when you think about it, when architects used to just draw, right? And architects like this, they can't really find themselves anymore in this life today. So you have to shift, you have to evolve, you have to learn all the time, and also upgrade your skills. I think in all the niches and in the industry, you always have to think that there is a generation that is younger than you, and whoever is learning and getting their education right now, they would know better than you know. And now with the AI evolving so much, we really need this kind of knowledge. We really need to be on time with the changes that are happening, especially within the technology. And technology and architecture is so connected.
Yeah, I find your niche very exciting because I used to work in this niche as well. Residential, high-end residential, and sort of hospitality,
Yeah.
retail, restaurants. So this is a very interesting niche because the people who are running, I mean, apart from private clients who demand sort of residential, sort of private residential sort of projects, the the people who are working in the retail or commercial sort of sector, they have budgets to spend on creativity, to spend on uniqueness, if I may say so. And I found it to be a great market for people that use technology today, especially AI, to really kind of find new jobs in this market of working with retail companies, working with commercial companies, to help them with creativity, to help them with interiors of their stores. I did a project for a client um, from the cosmetic industry. They wanted to design a interior of their store in Mall of Emirates, and they wanted us to design it with AI, and we did it for them. And the kind of goal was to really test the tools and the level of creativity that we could achieve using AI. And I guess you have been using AI throughout maybe 5 6 months, um, and then what did you recognize in terms of opportunities in this niche market that you also work in?
Right. Yes. So it's been actually a bit longer than 6 months, because the first thing that ever was released to public was DALI. Was long waiting list, but when I finally got it, that was the first experience I ever had with AI and architecture and creating images. In the beginning, it was just for fun. Like you have this tool, but you don't really know what to do with it. And then when the Midjourney happened and they upgraded their quality, the speed of rendering, it was about November, December last year. It really speed up everything in terms of design process,
Yeah.
creating concepts like you mentioned for companies. So yes, it's been a while. I've been working with it, and in the beginning, I remember people were publishing a lot of funny images or even some weird architecture and stuff like this, and it wasn't that interesting because I mean, what do you need an image for? I believe that there has to be a purpose behind anything we create. Otherwise, it's just a wasted time, wasted effort. Because you know, there is no reason for an image to exist, for example, if it doesn't give you what you really need. But if you're working on something specific, if you're working on a project and you use AI in order to help you move forward with certain things or speed up with the design process, for example, in the interior design, using AI helps so much creating sample boards. You work on a project, you want to have a beautiful color scheme with materials and everything to be able to present it to your client, and you don't want to have one, you want to have multiple options for your client in order for them, to choose whatever they prefer. So usually it was ordering a lot of samples, ordering, I mean, not even all companies wanted to send you a sample of their product, so you would need to reach out, convince them to send you a piece of their tile or, cut a piece of fabric, whatever. You had to wait until you collected everything, then you had to make them beautifully on a board, and this was the way to present it to a client. But today, with AI, with Midjourney or with Stable Diffusion, you can create those boards in seconds, in seconds, seriously. And you can have so many of them, so many different variations. And this is so helpful actually in the early stage of the project, not after you've been working for months for a client developing layouts, furniture boards and other details. So I think I find this AI help with the design process at the very, very early stage so helpful that it can help you get the client or not. I work for myself. I mean, I have my own company, so I work with clients, with developers, or with, yeah, either with big developers or just directly with customers. So I think that, this kind of ability of being able to deliver faster puts you a bit higher than your competition.
Yeah, I found the same in terms of like coming up with quick and very exciting concept ideas in the feasibility study, concept design stage in the beginning to really make the client excited, and then kind of get the project and then start to kind of rationalize the design. But how, I wonder, how did you find the transition between concept design and later stages when it comes to technical design, for example? Because with AI, the kind of images that you see, they're not going to be exactly like probably what you have in mind. I mean, if the client signed a kind of piece of drawing off and you were to build that, how do you find that transition between the concept image that you get from Midjourney and then making it a real space with technical design? I wonder.
Right, right. So for me, this order of works doesn't actually work. It doesn't work. I mean, I really don't need to use AI to have ideas because I think that we have so many ideas, just, being so creative, and we were trained to be creative throughout our university and then our practice. So, for example, my workflow would be the opposite. I would have something that I have in my mind, or I would have a mood board with different images, right? And then I would use this as an input in order to generate what I would like to, have in the end. Many times this means I already have a 3D model of something, and it doesn't have to be a perfectly polished 3D model. It can be a piece of furniture. Sometimes it's house designs as well. And then I would use not only Midjourney, but also other software for AI like D5 Renderer. They released this D5 High or Stable Diffusion with ControlNet. It's so helpful because you have so much more control over the final output, right, what you can get. And sometimes this really helps me to skip the process of developing high resolution visuals where you really have to spend hours on detailing everything. There are things that maybe are not as important because whenever you present to the client, obviously you show them an image, show them an example of your work or a drawing, whatever, and you can always annotate the drawing and say, okay, this looks like this, but this is what I would like to propose instead of what you see here. So I guess that for me, the design process would be, just to have something that you've already created. It's either a sketch or a model or seriously just a board of different images that you can blend with Midjourney using the blend mode. So for example, in terms of developing a piece of furniture, you would use different images of different kind of furniture. Then you would use another image that would have the texture that you want, and then blend everything together. So in the end, you have something similar to what you would have done if you 3D modeled and applied the texture to it.
And I guess so you're using AI to visualize your kind of previous concepts, right? So you're not using your AI in your professional work to design in a way, you're using it to visualize. Is that correct?
Yes, I think I use it more to illustrate the idea and, like I said, to speed up the design process so I don't have to spend hours developing something or a 3D model or a visual, make it look perfect, and post production in Photoshop that takes crazy hours, show it to the client, and then I will hear, oh no, we have to change this, we have to change that, because this is how the process usually looks like. In this case, I'm trying to save some time on those let's say final polishing things that you have to do before the product is ready. And I would use Midjourney or Stable Diffusion or D5 Render in order to get the very close to the final product what I have, so I can present it to the client. Then I can get the feedback, and I know I will understand whether we moving forward with this or not. Because I think the worst part as a designer or as an architect is when you have to make so many revisions. And it happens very early on the concept stage, but it also happens when you have the technical drawings, the technical design, and then you still have to make changes, like go back and change something. So in this process, there is so much time that, in my opinion, is wasted on correcting things. And it's not your fault. It's not your fault. You do things right, but the things change. Maybe the requirements will change. Maybe something on site will happen that you will have to revise your design. So in order not to make this design process too long, take too many months, because this translates into money, right, to everyone. I guess that using AI to speed up the process to get to the final point, almost the final point, as quick as possible to close the deal is the best. And this is what the AI could do for us as designers, as freelancers, as company owners.
Yeah, I guess it's very useful to use AI for, as you say, iterations and amending things, because now even with Photoshop, generative fill, we can specifically like highlight one specific area in your render and change that. If you have like a window arch shape, you can change it to a sash window or like vice versa or something like that. So as you say, it's much more efficient to do the iterations via AI. And I wonder, how do you communicate with your clients about, I mean, whether or not you communicate or not that this image that you see is an AI image? Because some clients, as you know, they have a opinion on what AI is, and what they think about the person using AI. They have some certain maybe opinions on if AI should be used in projects or not. How I wonder, how do you communicate that this is an AI image, or you don't communicate that at all? You believe that this is part of the design process. It doesn't matter which tool it's been used to create this.
Right. It's a good question. And to be honest, so far I haven't had any negative feedback from the clients. And whether I stay or not, it depends what stage I'm presenting at. So if I'm presenting sample boards and it happens at the very, very beginning of the project, at the concept stage, just to present this is my idea, this is what I think the interior should look like, we should have those materials, then of course they are not expecting me to have the samples handy for them to see. So I would say, look, this is obviously generated with AI, but if you want to move forward with this, obviously, the next step would be to order all the samples and revise everything in real life. But sometimes when I create a 3D model for, let's say a kitchen design, and I have this 3D model, even pre-rendered in some other software, and I would use stable diffusion with control net to get different materials, or even Midjourney to have a variation in the layout, right? And I would put everything as a booklet because this is how I'm presenting to the clients, so they're getting a booklet with different options. And then I wouldn't say this was done with AI because, it doesn't really matter for them. They get the project, everything looks according to the layout, right? Because this is important. We know that with AI, sometimes it gets out of control. And the most difficult part is to always make sure that it doesn't do too many modifications in your project, or, like those stupid things that, immediately you have a lamp in a place that, it's just, incredible. Like in the middle of the room or something. So, just have to be careful with this. But if you have control over those things and you deliver the final product, then I don't think it really matters because we are using the software anyway, right? We are using 3D software to render anyway. We use the technology anyway. So what's the difference for a client whether this was achieved, with spending so many hours 3D modeling and rendering, or if it was achieved with just, a couple of clicks, maybe half an hour after you get the final result, the one that you want. Maybe it was photoshopped later as well. So it's not a problem for a client as long as they get what they pay you for, right? And many times they just want the things like this, like, can you do it like in a week or a couple of days? And you have to say no because, it just takes so much time. But today, actually, yes, you can do it. I think the craziest project I've ever done was interiors for a private jet, and it took me only a couple of days to develop the entire design with a lot of variations for exterior and for interior. That wouldn't be possible, doing the traditional way, like 3D modeling everything and giving so many different variations into one project. So I developed everything using Midjourney, everything. And then after the final version was selected by the client and confirmed, only then I did the 3D model, and
Wow.
yes, did a lot of work like layouts and stuff like this, technical layouts to it.
So you translated that Midjourney image into technical layouts and all of that. How did you find that?
Yes, yes. I mean, obviously,
Because this is
like you
a
have.
this is a certainly this is a project that you started with AI and you kind of designed with AI, in opposed to other projects that you do that you don't design it with AI and you visualize it with AI only in some cases. This was a project
Yes.
probably that you started to use AI as a design tool, and then had to go back in a reverse sort of direction to make it technical. Um, yeah, tell us a bit about that process.
Right. It was really wild and surprising, even to me, because this is the time that you can really allow yourself to test many different ideas. And in this case, I wasn't restricted by the regular things. When you have a brief and you have to stick to the brief, whenever you have, I don't know, a certain building, you have to stick to the size of the building and stuff like this. For the private jet, it was obviously there is only one type of the plane, so you have to stick to the structure, and we know the sizes, but everything else inside and outside wasn't restricted by anything. So I could really go wild with testing different ideas. And I use many reference images in order to create exteriors, and then reference images in order to create the interiors as well. And when I was happy with the outcome, this is what I would present to the client. And obviously, having in mind all the time, yes, in the end, I will have to make it as a technical drawing, as a 3D model. So I had to select only those images from Midjourney that I knew they would work in real life. Because some creations by Midjourney are just, out of control. They're just crazy. But that's not the point. In this case, I created so many different images. It was like a couple hundred, seriously. And out of them, I selected only the ones that I know that they work, they match, they are in the same style. And once the client has chosen, obviously, and they've chosen the craziest design ever. They've chosen what I didn't want them to choose. And I know, okay, so this will be a really complex 3D model, but it's fine. I mean, it's fine because you can still import the same image to, let's say, Maya, and then trace it and model it as well. So it's not a problem. It's something that you can do. Right. So it's totally doable. But
That's
that's the
crazy.
process. So I had
Um,
an image, and then I traced it in 3D software. Yes.
and I guess you weren't a designer for interiors or planes before, and I guess this was a project that were. I mean, I'm not sure how that you were approached by this client. I guess I can only guess that this was probably the result of you really putting yourself out there on the social media with your work, or was it something that it was like your network that came from your kind of previous network? Was this something that you saw as a result of expressing yourself in social media with your work as a designer who's working with AI?
Right. Yes, you're very right. It came just from social media. It came exactly from Instagram. And yes, I have this secret love to aircrafts. So it was one of the things that I experimented with Midjourney, creating different kind of aircrafts, not only planes but also different kind of aircrafts. And I guess this is and I had a collaboration with someone else before. Someone has approached me to also design the exterior of the plane matching his Lamborghini, or Bugatti was it? I don't know. So that was my first cooperation, and then it was posted somewhere else. It was posted on many other huge accounts, like those accounts that have millions of followers. And I guess this is how the client finally found me, and they said that they are looking for someone who would design their aircraft and interiors, whether I have any experience. And actually, I'm not a plane designer at all, but I had some experience. I know this type of aircraft very well, because of my father who was working with those aircraft. So I know them very, very well. I know how they look inside.
So you had
And
an
I told
unfair
them
advantage
everything.
as well.
Yes. And so yeah, this is how it started, really. And they really loved the design, which was really surprising. And it's an ongoing project still. So hopefully, when it's all done and painted, I will have something to be able to show and see how everything evolves, just from the concept phase, from just being open to new tools and technologies, especially AI. And if you are an experienced person, right, you're a professional and you know what you're doing, then AI is just a tool in your hands, and it can give you great results if you know how to use it, if you test, and if you give yourself an option to experiment with it.
And I have a question again back to social media about, because after this kind of new advancements in AI tools and all of that, the Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, Dolly, all of them really pumping, and so many people started to use them, and we started to see a new wave of designers who were not necessarily designers before, but they were really good at designing with AI. I wonder, I asked this question from everyone in the podcast because it's a very important question, in my opinion, and I really like to know your answer to this. That I would like to know, in your opinion, what is the difference between someone who studied design or is a designer who, and use AI for design, and someone who's not a designer using AI for design or explorations? Because I see that you also do loads of explorations. I mean, this kind of plain interior, I think in the beginning was an kind of exploration as well. It wasn't a project from the beginning, so you kind of were exploring with the with the interiors of planes, and then someone contacted you about, could you for example do this project for us, and that's really valuable. Like, that shows the power of these explorations as well. But I want to hear your opinion about the currency of a designer versus a non-designer in the age of AI.
Right. Well, actually, it's an interesting topic because AI and tools like Midjourney is open to public. So it means everyone can use it. And people do. And it's okay. It's really cool people do because, you know, the fact that you are not trained as a designer doesn't mean that you don't have a talent for it. And it's not only about the designers. The fact that you are not trained as a writer doesn't mean you are not a good storyteller. Maybe you're better because you have a natural talent, but in your life something happened that you chose to have a different career. And right now I also know people who are university professors and architects, but choosing the path of education, they never had a chance to actually practice architecture. And now with those tools, they are able to express their artistic side, kind of, right, and create this sort of architecture that is just in a form of an image. It's not a model, it's not an actual building, but this is their way of expression themselves. So I guess just the fact that we have a new tool is allowing people to be able to express themselves in a better way. And if it comes to the actual currency of a designer, right? I think I don't agree that all AI generated images are cool. I don't agree that all explorations and proposals are cool enough to even be published, but they are, right? And everyone obviously is entitled to have their own opinion about the things they see. It will not stop people from doing it, whether it's professionals or not. People will use it, people will publish, will create a lot of content. And I guess nowadays, this is what people want. Like, big companies like Google, they just want content creators and they encourage content creators. So we will have a lot. So now, in terms, if you're asking, like, if it's good for those people actually create, I think it's good they create. Why not? I mean, everyone can do it, but would they find a valid job? Would they be hired? Would they be responsible of creating something for the society? That's another topic. And I guess that it's better to train professionals about AI and how can they use this as a tool in order to create things that are actually can be built, can have a proper function for the society and stuff like this, rather than hiring someone who's just experimenting. Because those kind of like experiments, they're cool if you're an artist, or an architect, and or you work in a gallery or you have your own exhibitions and you create a set of explorations for your new exhibition, whatever. It's so cool because you know that this eventually can be translated into something tangible. Whereas if someone is just generating so many images in order just to post, to have the movement on their account, we know that today people do it just to get clicks, to get likes, and they would do so many of these things because actually this is just building their social presence. But this doesn't mean that they are able to come up with something that actually can work in real life. It's so far it's just a concept, it's just an exploration. What you said about I was when I was doing my explorations, I actually didn't do any interior design for planes. I was rather experimenting with the forms of aerodynamics and proposed different shapes for aircrafts, following the report that IATA, this organization, is launching every couple of years. They say like which direction they go, and this inspired me to have my own word and have my own thought about it. But the company that approached me, they knew I was a qualified interior designer and architect. Therefore, they asked me, "Can you please design the interior of the aircraft?" And they knew I would be able to handle this project because I have experience. I know that, maybe not particularly for the aircraft they asked me for, but this is something that I would learn, right? I would do my research because I'm a professional, and I know every time I approach a new project, I have to do the brief, I need to gather all the information, do the research. And this is part of my work. This is part of what made me a professional I am today, right? So that's the difference, I guess.
I wonder what is your answer to this, as because like Patrick Schumacher, the principal of Zaha Hadid Architects, says that obviously like they're doing lots of work with AI and they're doing lots of competitions with AI and all of that, and they say, and he said particularly that the word Zaha Hadid is used in almost all of their prompts, and I wonder uh, what is going to happen to a style like Zaha Hadid, where everyone is, I mean, not everyone, but like so many people use Zaha Hadid as a keyword in their prompts to get something like Zaha Hadid architect sort of style of design with AI to achieve something like that. And we see like so many mishmash of, styles of famous architects, including Zaha Hadid, um, in social media being shared. Do you think the uniqueness of some particular styles will fade away because everyone is interested in them and everyone is using them? And finally, that style is not going to be popular anymore because it's just like another curve style of design. What do you think?
Yes, very interesting. And yes, I think that some general styles, let's say, of architecture, like Zaha Hadid, but Norman Foster, and Sopiano, big names, are used to influence a lot of images that are created with Midjourney. If you go to any tutorial about Midjourney, about prompt engineering, they would tell you define what you want, the object, and then write in a style of, and then you can define the style of something. And that is important for the AI to understand how to generate the object or the architecture, whatever this is you want. So I guess that it's inevitable in order to define any style for anything you create. However, I understand what you mean. Like, then in the end, we end up with having so many similar ideas done by people who are not even architects, right? So if you sat down with an empty piece of paper, or any person, right, who's not an architect, and you would say, okay, can you please draw something? I don't know, maybe an idea for a stadium or something. They wouldn't be able to come up with the idea as they are now using Midjourney or any other software if they define the style and use a high keyword like Zaha Hadid Architects, for example, because this actually does the job for you, right? It doesn't mean that it came from your imagination or even the idea of something that you really wanted to present to the world. So, then sometimes you get to see a lot of images that are so similar, but you don't really know what they are all about. Because I guess that, you can easily see a good idea, right? Somehow we are able to recognize it with our subconscious mind, whether something is cool, is unique, and is new or not. And I guess this is the design process that is put into generating any sort of architecture or products or anything with AI. if you really do the work properly, like we are trained to do, right? When you do the research, the briefing, have initial ideas, create your boards with ideas, with materials, proper mood board for whatever you're working on, and then you try to extract the keywords out of it and generate something that is really unique, then and you see the image and this is it, right? This is it. This is something that I really wanted to create. And maybe it's better than what you would have thought. Maybe it's more advanced. Maybe it's more futuristic. But this is it. Whereas I guess sometimes people just create random stuff and define it with words. And they would say, this is a cool design. On the opposite side, we have comments under posts like this sometimes, very negative about, like, yes, this person just created this using words. It's not a proper design. It's not a project. It's not this. It's not that. In a way, that's true. But if someone really sticks to the process and tries to deliver something of value, then it doesn't apply, right? Because it's a good and it's a quality thing comparing to other stuff that are maybe not as thoughtful. They're just using the words in order to create something that is new, something that is different, which in my opinion is pointless. I seriously believe that many of the things that people create is just pointless.
Um, Again, about the style, as we were talking this, I found it very powerful when you use a style in Midjourney prompt, because Midjourney immediately recognizes that style and kind of replicates that specific style, and tada, you're done. What I found very difficult is to create new type of styles which are not branded. There was a gentleman presenting at this conference also who was basically exploring the combinations of different brands, for example, Burberry and Versace, for example. Um, and the results were impressive. But that's because Midjourney is really good at understanding styles, because like if you search in a Midjourney database, Versace, for example, there will be loads of different images of Versace, and Midjourney is really powerful in understanding what Versace style really is all about. Um, I wanted to ask this gentleman this question, but I didn't get time to do so. But I want to hear your opinion instead about the effort for creating new styles, unbranded styles. How is that difficult or easy in Midjourney, in your opinion? And what you have found, like, what are the tricks you found useful in order to leverage when it comes to developing your own style of work, apart from, you know, um, you obviously you have your style of work, and you don't. I mean, I'm not sure what kind of prompts you use, but um, you make your own style and not use any other style as a prompt. So let me know about that. Like, what is your workflow about the style of your images? Do you use anyone else's? Because it's fine to use anyone else's style in some cases, because you need particular thing to look like something, and you can't really achieve it without saying that particular style. So sometimes it can be useful, but I wonder what is your own workflow, and how do you get about creating your own style?
Right, right. It's a good point. You're very right. I think, using those names that are so easily recognizable, whether it's name of designers, architectural designers, or fashion designers, it works better and you get those crazy results from the first image. Let's talk about Midjourney, like. Especially, it gives you this cool designs from the very early image you're getting. Whereas if you're developing a product can be anything, any product, interior design or any other product you would like to sell, maybe or manufacture yourself, and obviously you know that this product has to be unique and it has to be different to anything else that exists. Then this takes a lot of time and effort in order to generate the things you want. And I had a couple of projects like this, not even related with architecture, but product design. And yes, it took so long before actually getting to the right type of the image that you can later iterate and create variations from it. So I think my trick is always to try different keywords, that's for sure. But for the style, I guess what helps me is a lot of reference images that I have, that I, for example, if I it's a little bit like drawing or painting or sketching, everyone just has this different way of doing it. And you would say, okay, you can see my sketch and you would know it's my sketch. If I sketch today or in 10 years, you would say it's mine, because it always has the style of the line, the style of, pressing the pen against the paper, whether it's light, whether it's harder. So this kind of defines your personal style. And I guess with generating images, if you are an artist or if you're an architect and you are aware of, the style and being original in this market, because this is actually what matters. I know there are a lot of people who like to copy and they feel confident in copying others people's work. For some people this works as well, but some people would never copy anything. I'm one of these people, because I feel like then my life wouldn't be worth if I just did exactly the same as someone else has already done. Then why am I here? Why am I even wasting my time doing this? It either looks different, original, or just has no reason to even exist. So being conscious that you want to create something that is unique makes you think in a different way when you approach the task. And it would translate into either finding a proper reference images, or even sketching something yourself, or even 3D modeling, in order for you to have the proper start for this engine to develop, to give you different ideas. And it happened to me many times that in terms of product design, that I had to actually design something, a 3D model something first, and then use different reference images in order to get the final look of the product I wanted. Or if it comes to just images, like recently I posted some desert images. So for this, I knew exactly what kind of vibe I wanted, what kind of style. I wanted it to be feminine, a bit pink, but also very pastel looking. And it took me some time in order to get to the style. But I didn't use anyone's images, in order to create this. It took me time. It took some effort. It took a lot of trials with different images, with different words, in order to get what I wanted. But as soon as you get to the point and you see which keyword and how you put it right, because even in Midjourney you have the codes. You have the codes. You can either put more emphasis on certain words. You can block some words if you don't want certain colors in it. So this helps. This helps you to have more control over what you're achieving in the end. It's important to have your own style, and it's such a great tool. If you really know what you're after, you can be really good at it.
You mentioned using keywords and parameters. I guess that's something that we were not really used to as designers before when we were designing using pen and paper. We are now
Mhm.
introduced to a new way of designing, which is all about verbal communication. I mean, communication via keywords. Um, how did you find that kind of shift between designing with, the kind of older school tools, or even other digital tools, versus AI tools which operate with keywords and parameters and things like that?
To be honest, it's not really new. It's not really new if you are a designer. Every time I was working on a project during my university, one of the key elements of the final report was a page with keywords for your project. That was obligatory. Everyone had to develop keywords before you were able to even start creating the final mood board for the project. So collecting reference images and collecting keywords was already part of the design process anyway. And I guess not only for me, not only for interior designer, for architects, for artists, for many other people, this is part of this process. And it's always been a part of it, whether you recognize it or not. So knowing this, it obviously helps to structure and understand the way you should structure the prompt. But with practice, the more you do, the more you work in Midjourney. Like every software is similar but different at the same time. You learn, which words are actually the important words, which words are not important. So sometimes you would say, "Oh, I would like to generate, I don't know, a house on a hill with a beautiful landscape overlooking a town or something, Los Angeles in the background or something." Um, and you think that this is the image in your head. This is what you would like to get, and you put it in Midjourney. You're getting something completely different. And this is when you learn that to get to the result that you want, sometimes you have to go all the way around. Sometimes you can't really describe the things that you think that they should be important, but you have to put emphasis on different words, and the rest will fall into place with either a reference image or just blocking some words and then trying different ways, different iterations of the same image, right? You have one image that is the closest to what you want, but maybe it doesn't have the Los Angeles landscape in the background like you wanted. So you have your image that is close to what you want, and then you keep adding words and variations to in the end get what you really want. And this is how this is how it is. This is how the process looks like. I know many times, when you have something that you're really like 70% happy with, it's good to then continue the work, post production work in Photoshop, for example, because you will get there quicker. But it's also possible with all the tools. This is developing so fast. Good for us. And I'm really happy to have a software like D5 Renderer where you can actually render real time your project, your 3D model. It's so amazing how it works. This is something that I've been trying to do with Midjourney, and sometimes it worked, other times it didn't. It was always like a lottery whether you will hit your number or not. But today, all the rendering software, like and Photoshop and other software, they're so looking forward to implement AI within their software that will speed up your process and help you get to what you want so much quicker.
Yeah, they already have done some work in terms of plugins. For example, Veros is a plugin now that can be installed on, I guess, Rhino, Rabbit, that can provide like AI simultaneous renders. Um, and I had a counter argument, if I may, with the point you made about design statements that you had to write in uni, for example, for your projects. In my opinion, I feel like that the new way of describing is very different to the old way of describing that. I mean, it's not old way, but like the different way of describing that we use for projects. Because as you know, better than me, Midjourney is not really looking for correct grammars, is not really looking for, the way we communicate via language verbally every day. It's very peculiar in terms of how it wants a prompt to be. For example, the prompts, it's usually recommended that your prompt should be very concise, very short. You have the most important keywords in the beginning and your parameters at the end. So I guess this is very different to the way that we used to describe our projects. I know some keywords and kind of jargons that we used in architecture school can be very helpful in help us with keywords, but the way that we describe, I guess, is different with AI tools, and that kind of requires a new way of describing, that requires expertise. And I see like prompt engineers now, the job of prompt engineer being kind of popular now, and people call themselves prompt engineer because I also believe that there is engineering in prompt as well. But
Mhm.
I wanna hear your opinion about education and academia, because with this new way of designing via language, for example, there could be a lot of change in the future years in the academia. But in overall terms, we also see some resistance towards AI in universities as well. What are your thoughts about how students will design in future? Will they? I mean, do you think that universities are gonna embrace AI, or do you think? I mean, you studied in London, you studied in Poland, so I want to hear your opinion about different countries and different education systems, because I had some studios in London universities. I don't want to name the university, but I've heard that they were thinking to ban AI in their studios, and I guess, I mean, each city has their own particular way of practicing, but what is your opinion about using AI in academia?
Right. Right. I wish I was studying today and had the tools like ChatGPT to write my papers. That would be so helpful, really. But I guess how the future should develop, for sure, it should include AI. It should include AI and be a part of the design process, but not from the very early stage, right? Everyone has to be able, has needs to have this opportunity to learn how things evolved. You can compare it a little bit to back in the times when we had first computers like Atari, Commodore, those computers, right? Whoever remembers those times, and you remember how you had to type stuff in order to had things on your screen, right? You kind of understand Windows better. You understand any software, any browser or any applications that are based on browsers better. You understand how your smartphone works better because you have this kind of background and you know where it all came from. And it's the same with architecture. If you just were about to use AI to generate ideas and models and never model yourself, you can't really become a designer, an architect. You can't really do it because you need to be able to um, make a tangible product out of whatever concept you're working on. And AI is really speeding up the process. It's helping us a lot. It's helping us saving time on 3D rendering and all those things that we were spending so much time in front of computers, even as students, even as professionals. How many nights you couldn't just say, okay, I'm done for today. No, you have to work because you have to get it done, and it has to have a certain level of professionalism in it. So you know that you have to push really hard in order to get there. But with AI and with all the help we're getting, this process can be shortened, that's for sure. And part of the university program should be, experimenting with those tools as well. But the traditional things, the even making physical models, right, from paper or wood or any other means, is important because this is when you gain the spatial ability, the proper understanding of what you're really doing. When you only have an image, a flat image of something, you don't feel the space, you don't understand it. You can only see beautiful composition, right? And let's face it, I think the best part of all the AI generated images is that the composition is always perfect. Colors are always matching. The vibe on the image sometimes is blurred. You have a vignette around or something. It's just creating those perfect looking still images. And this also lies to our perception a little bit because sometimes we might think, oh, I really like this. But if you saw this as a 3D model in real life, you might say, no, I don't really like this. It just feels so bad. I don't know. It can give you many different feelings. But as architects, as designers, we are as responsible for this side of design that we create functional spaces that help us to thrive, to live, to work in them. So it's not just creating beautiful images. It's something much deeper, much more profound. It will never be completely taken by AI, in my opinion.
Studying architecture is still going to be demanding, folks. You still got to pull the all-nighters. So yeah, don't just rely on AI to do all of your crits for you. But thank you so much, Ula. I learned so much, and this was a great conversation. I'm really pleased to hear that you're in London, so we could grab a coffee at some point. Um, and if you have any final, comments, words, or things that you want to say to new generation of designers and architects, feel free to do so, and we'll put all of your socials and handles in the description as well, so people can find you online.
I think my final thought is really to encourage people to give it a try if you haven't already, because AI will not take our jobs or positions just as such, but people who know how to work with them will definitely be more attractive on the market than people who don't know how to do it. So I would encourage everyone to give it a try if you haven't already. And thank you so much for inviting me today and giving me this opportunity to share my experience with AI in the design process.
Thank you so much for giving us your time. And that was it for this session. You can hear AI Hub Podcast from your favorite app of choice in terms of podcast, Spotify, YouTube, or Castbox. And we would love to hear your opinions and comments on each episode. So please let us know what you think, and tell us also about your own experience with AI as well. Um, we hope to see you in the next episode. And this was a very exciting episode with Uda, interior designer and architect based in London, who's doing an amazing job in the world of AI and creative industry and design. Thank you so much, and see you in the next episode.